Welcome to the lesson 2, Exploring Identity. This presentation has been prepared as part of the project Boosting Positive Narrative on Roman Integration through Arts. The aim of this program is to present the SBAIL workshop to teachers based on the experience gathered during its implementation in France. This lesson focuses on the notion of personal identity. As a first step, it is important to know the learner's personality and background, and then to explore their image in a social context. Do not forget that cultural identity might be a crucial factor to understand learners' personality. Furthermore, cultural identity may play a crucial role in the social context of participants. So let's give a brief overview of what is cultural identity. Cultural identity is the set of sociocultural manifestations, beliefs, traditions, symbols, customs, and values that provides individuals belonging to a community with a sense of belonging and communication with their peers. In other words, it is a form of collective identification through which the members of a certain social group understood as a culture are differentiated from those who are not part of it. We all have a cultural identity which is largely determined by the condition of birth and by the hegemonic majority culture receive. However, the subgroups to which they belong within their culture also have an influence. Thus, within an official culture, generally coinciding with the national culture or identity, there are different subcultures or subgroups that, despite being part of the majority, have different traits. Cultural identity, however, are not monolithic or total. A person can be more or less traditional in his way of understanding and exercising his identity and her culture, or he can tend towards multiculturalism, that is, towards the more or less harmonious coexistence of elements from different human cultures. Cultural identity can be very relevant in dealing with others, especially when it is built in opposition to others or in resistance to others. On the other hand, it can also be an ally when it comes to experiencing society from a more open point of view. The knowledge and acceptance of one's own cultural identity allows one to face those of others with tolerance and understanding, without feeling that the way others do things is a threat to one's own. Cultural identity is part of who one is and one's history. It constitutes an important legacy that migrants carry with them and contributes to the society that receives them, just as the latter offers them a new one. In the end, like all identities, culture is porous, mobile, not necessarily strict. All cultural identity is broadly defined by some of the following elements. Language. An important percentage of all cultural identity resides in language, that is, in the language that is spoken, but also in the geographical and social dialects with which said language is spoken. Thus, for example, the region of a nation might have a different cultural identity from another, even though they profess the same national identity. The second one is religion. The religiosity and the moral, ethical, and mystical traditions of one's culture can be similar or substantially different from those of another, depending on historical patterns. And this plays a fundamental role in cultural identity, even in the case of atheists. For example, we Western tend towards a Christian morality, Catholic or Protestant, given that it was the majority religion for many centuries. The third factor is ethnicity. Racial and ethnic origins often play an important role in cultural identity, since communities have traditionally been grouped around common ideas of race, culture, and geography. For example, the Afro-American cultural identity in the United States is one of the most intense and combative within the American national identity. Finally, we have social class. The social strata of a community also share traits of cultural identity that can be exclusive or that allows them to identify their members with each other. A way of speaking, dancing, or a shared imaginary usually distinguishes the working classes from the wealthy. Cultural identity is not something immutable or fixed, but can change, reformulate, and be influenced by other cultures. This exchange can take place in a friendly and peaceful way through social, cultural, or commercial relations, in which both participants exchange practices, way of thinking, and influence each other reciprocally. In other cases, the exchange takes place in an unidirectional, violent way through relations of domination, colonization, and submission, such as those imposed by European empires on their colonies during the era of imperialism. These processes of cultural identity change can be called differently. For example, we have acculturation, when elements of one's own culture are replaced by those from another as a consequence of acts of violence like conquest, invasions, colonizations, and so on. It can also be defined as transculturation, when two or more cultures exchange elements, usually accompanying activities of commercial, economic exchange, etc. They are natural and unavoidable phenomena that enrich both cultures. Also, we have inculturation, when an individual embraces elements from different cultures and assumes them as their own without feeling the need to defend some as their own. With the reconstruction of her personal history, each adult will be able to know his roots and giving it value, at the same time that they begin to build her his own personality. And this is very important for the SBAIL workshop implementation. Identity is the characteristic of an individual that makes him or her unique and therefore different from others. The sociocultural context in which the adult is found is of great importance for the formation of his/her identity. With the reconstruction of her personal history, each adult will be able to know his root and give it value at the same time that they begin to build his own personality. Our identity is built from the stories, experiences, and values that we have been incorporating since our childhood. That is, we form our identity based on memories and experience. With the reconstruction of their personal history in a timeline, each participant will be able to know their roots and given them value, at the same time that they begin to build their own personality and recognize the factors that have enriched their identity. The first exercise aims to find out more about each of the participants to nurture their feeling of belonging and personal appreciation. Their cultural identity is critical to workshop success because it influences how they interpret and react to the world around them. Developing an awareness of their identity can help them gain a better understanding of the unique contribution they have to offer, both personally and professionally. Therefore, knowing their identity will be crucial for the first steps of the narrative storytelling of the artwork. During the first exercise entitled Timeline, Where I Come From and Who Am I, the first effort is in deciding which stories to tell are crucial. You must first know them as individuals so you can help them to open and to recognize their power as a storyteller. There must be time for all learners to express themselves, and their expression must be recognized, as this will be a source of empowerment, one of the objectives that we want to achieve within the SBAIL workshop. Every voice matters. Especially when tackling complex issues like discrimination, The diversity of perspectives ensure that each person's experience is considered when designing solutions for the future, or in the case of the SBAIL workshop, when deciding the archetypes of the art objects. The key is to use their life experience as inspiration for the unique contribution that they would like to make in the world. Do not forget that the workshop is an opportunity to provide positive aspects of their culture. However, be prepared to deal with issues that are subject to discrimination. To correctly address this issue will provide a good path to develop a strong message that includes reflection from visitors based on discrimination aspects that happen in their community. The first exercise consists of making a timeline using a drawing as a main tool in it. In this activity, the learners highlight significant aspects of their lives and plotted them in chronological order on paper. The main objective of the motivation for this first activity is linked to the entire workshop, which is to highlight the positive image of their identity linked to Romani culture, and if wish, the discrimination or exclusion factors of what learners have been dealing with and during all their life linked to their identity and to the socioeconomic environment in which they are living. All this to be incorporated to a large extent when working on the next sessions related to the thematic of the artwork. The expected process of this exercise 1 is focused on the work that needs to be done on personal perspective by developing their own history by drawing up the lifetime of each learner to set basic experience in terms of their identity and social context, but more important, to give them a space to share what are their experiences, what have been important for them, and to provide recognition of the value that they can offer to their society as individuals. This is the end of the lesson 2, Exploring Identity. To know more about the exercise, please consult the Learning for Learners section of this SBAIL workshop. Thank you.